Well, good evening and welcome to this installment of Pastors on the Porch, or Pastor. I keep thinking there's more than one of me on here some nights, but Pastor on the Porch for March 3rd, 2021, and I've got puppies that are going crazy. So if you hear a tap, tap, tap every once in a while, it's me trying to get the puppies to chill out a little bit, or I just ignore them and they will hopefully settle down. But we come this evening in our third week in Lent, the third week in the season of Lent, in which we are discovering more about ourselves, looking within ourselves, looking within our practices, looking within our being to explore what it means to be us. This Lenten season has been a weird Lenten season because it feels like we have been in a Lenten season for a year, literally 1 year. Today marks the anniversary of the first documented COVID case in the state of North Carolina. So, other than just saying that, I don't know. We've lost so many folks to this horrible virus. We've lost so many, families have lost so much due to this horrible virus. Folks have lost jobs. Folks have lost ways of maintaining their families. Folks have lost houses that they've lived in for years and years and years. Folks are going hungry. And we as a people, we as humans, we as God's children are called. We're called in a special way. We're called in a special way to be a special ambassador for Christ. So what does that look like? What does that look like in our lives? What it looks like is we look deeper. We look into ourselves, not just during these days of the Lenten season, but also in the middle of May, in the middle of July, in the middle of October, in the middle of November, December. We look internally, each and every one of us. And we look internally to discover more about us. We look internally to look at what makes us us. What has triggered us? What is our individual trauma? What is our individual abilities? What is our individual mindset? And what has caused that? Whether it be from the past, a past life that we may have lived, a past point in our lives in which we as humans were not of Christ, a past lifestyle maybe that we've lived that we regret, that we wish we hadn't done, that we wish that didn't occur in our lives. Those things that weigh in the back of our heads, those things that stir in our minds and seem to overtake us so much of the time. But at the same time, those same things are not only controlling us, but are controlling our emotions and controlling our ability to think and act in a godly manner. This last week I preached, and in my benediction I made the statement, don't be a Peter. Don't be a Peter. And it was a reflection of the idea that if we are of this world, if we are of this world-wide thinking, if we are of who we call ourselves to be and who we think we are, then we aren't doing the job that Christ has asked us to do. Because we are caught up in ourselves. We are caught up in the world that has formed us instead of being caught up in the form of the divine that has truly formed us. For we are all created in the image of God. Don't ever forget that. Each and every one of us is created in the image of God. So you say, but Pastor Joel, we're all so different. How are we all created in the image of God when we're all so different? We all look so different. Our skin tone is so different. We speak different languages. How are we all still created in the image of God? Well, that image of God is what we have been taught. That image of God is what we individually perceive God to look like. That image of God is not what's painted on the canvas. That image of God is not what's in the stained glass windows of the church. That image of God instead refers to our actions. How we treat one another. How we perceive to be treated by one another. How we live our life in this world in order to reflect the life of Christ who lived also in this world. That is the image of God that we need to look at and I want to look at tonight. I'm working on this week's message, and this week's message focuses on the cross. I wear a cross around my neck. I actually just recently today, a couple hours ago, got a new chain dropped off at the house thanks to the Amazon delivery guy, because the rope that I had been wearing it on since I received this particular cross had shredded down to just one or two twines, and I was afraid I was going to lose this, so I have been keeping it close to my body so I feel it all the time. But when we talk about the cross, and we talk about what it means to us today versus what it meant in the time of Jesus, we have two very different views. Now, I don't want to get onto that and away from our thought process. But it ties together in the idea that in the time of Christ, the Greco-Roman Empire was in control, was the dominant method of governance. And at that time, the cross was used to humiliate those who did not follow the law. It was used to humiliate, not to raise up, not to put on a... Sorry, I just saw my dog standing on the table. Not to put on a pedestal. But instead, the cross was used to humiliate and to show weakness for those that were crucified. So why would Jesus not put up a fight for the cross, to be put on the cross? Because Jesus wanted something different. Jesus knew there was something different out there. Jesus was of and is of the human race and the divine race. Two totally different thought processes. But what Jesus had was that divine thought, knowing knowing what was to come. No one around him knew what was to come. No one around him knew what was going to happen, even though he foreshadowed his death and resurrection. Don't forget that. He knew and told each and every one of them, each and every one of the disciples, what exactly was going to happen. But did they listen? No. Do we oftentimes listen when we are spoke to through the Lord? Well, I can only speak for myself in this case, but in my own personal case, it took a lot for the Lord to get through this very hard head. And it wasn't just through the hole in the head that's in the back. It took a lot to get through my emotional pain, my struggling with Scripture, my thought process of what was going on in the life of Christ, what happened in the healing that Christ would do. And I would often lay awake at night wondering, why, God, then do you not heal me? Why, God, do I have to continue in this struggle? Why, God, do I continue to have to suffer? And then after hours and hours of laying awake, my alarm would go off and I'd go to work and wouldn't think about it for a while. Sometimes even days or even weeks. But always that question remained. And I know that that question remains in many of our hearts. Why did this happen this way? Why did this person come into my life and leave it? Why did XYZ happen to XYZ? Some would say it's for a reason. I'm not truly fully of that camp, because so much that happens is of this world. And it has nothing to do with God. COVID is of this world. God would never put on us a disease that would kill over 1.5 million of His creation worldwide. God would never do that. God would never give us cancer. God would never give us brain injuries. God would never give us heart conditions that we live with our entire lives. God would never give us pneumonia. God would never give us whatever ailment or whatever illness or disease you can think of. God would not give those to us. That is all of this world. But when we convert it to thinking that God did this, thinking that God has done this to us, that's when we are taking the thought processes of this world and converting them into a divine thought process that is objectified by this world. But each of us lives with these troubles. Each of us lives with these pains. Each of us lives with these illnesses. For some of us, me included, it's a brain issue. It's a heart issue. It's a kidney issue. Others, it's a diabetic issue. Others, it's a cancer. Others, it's a, you name it. But each of us throughout our life becomes the person we are because of the stories we can tell. I often refer to a quote that I have no idea who it belongs to or anything about it. but I refer to it because it touches my life in so many ways. And that is, the scars are tattoos with better stories. Scars are tattoos with better stories. See, it's easy to walk down and go get a tattoo at a tattoo parlor or a tattoo shop. It takes a few hours. It may take some preparation time. But scars, both physical and emotional, are there for life. And although the tattoo is there for life, it may have a lot of sentimental meaning. It may have a lot of sentimental value in your personal heart. Oftentimes it's telling the story of other scars that you have lived through, other moments in life you have lived through. The true story of your life. Trying to represent that in a picture. Those are the moments that I want you to look through and look into this Lenten season. We've had this whole almost year of Lent where we've consistently been isolated. We've consistently been away from people. Our mental health has struggled. And even if you have gone into work each and every day, and this has not really affected your day-to-day life, it has. Trust me. Trust me on this. It has. Because you aren't having those interactions with your friends. You aren't having those interactions with your family. You aren't having those interactions other than, say, the grocery store or maybe a couple diners where you go out to eat. Those interactions that we as humans are designed to have. So even though it may not feel as though you've been directly affected, you have truly been indirectly affected. And each and every one of us has our own struggles. Each and every one of us has our own fights that we go and battle ourselves each and every day. But what I want to encourage you to do is figure out what those are. Figure out where in your life you see God moving you to be. Where in your life you feel God moving in your heart and in your soul. And where and what in your life is instead controlling you, is instead having and preventing you from living a full divine life. Now, as I said in my sermon on Sunday, we live in this world. We can't be fully engulfed in the divine, but we can live into it. We have to function, we have to work to pay for shelter, pay for food, pay for clothing. But when we are able, as beings of creations of God, to take those moments in which we can give to God instead of giving to this world, and we can make something happen with them. We can make something happen within ourselves with them. That's when we are truly in relationship and in a family with God, as Oswald Chambers, or with Christ, as Oswald Chambers says. We're living that holy life. And if we can't live into that holy life, then why do we even try? If we can't be of God, if we can't be for God, because of what this world has done to us, or how this world has changed us, or how we have changed because of this world, then we can't live into a holy, sanctified life. It's just not possible. There is no room. If we're filled up to here with the world, there's no room for God. But if we work through and ask God to work through with us all those things that are filling us up of this world, all those moments in our lives in which, let's face it, they're traumatic moments that we still live through in our life, day after day after day. I still live into the bullying that was done to me in middle school. And that was 30 years ago. Gosh, I'm old. But that still hinders there. I still live into those moments. I can see those faces. I can hear those words. But those are all of this world. Because those do not show the love of Christ. The love that we share. The love that shows us how to do no harm. The love that shows us what Christ would want us to do. Each and every one of us has those quote-unquote skeletons in our closet. Those things that may have happened decades ago that still bother us today in one way or another. So people give things up for Lent. Let's give those things up and work towards a more open and a clearer and a less full, meaning let's drop the amount of crap in our lives, in our heads, down. Because when we are able to do that, that's when we are able to fulfill the love of God and love of thy neighbor. But if we're all encompassed in what's going on in our head, there's no room for anybody else. There's no room for the divine. Because we've maxed out our hard drive space with the world. So I'll let you go this evening with this prayer. Lord, we come to you and ask you, why me? But we also come to you and ask you to release us of all of these burdens. Release us of whatever it is on our hearts, our minds, or on our souls that is keeping us from a complete and full relationship with you. Let us drain ourselves of this world. Let us drain what burdens us that has nothing to do with you. And instead, let us take that space up with you, Lord. Let us allow ourselves to be that divine being that you call us to be. Let us allow ourselves to live into the family of Christ. Let us allow ourselves to be of and into you. Because when we allow that, our lives can change. Our relationships can change. But most of our relationship with you, Lord, and you, Christ, can change and become more about you and less about this world. Because when we get all caught up in this world of hate, this world of decisiveness, this world of everything that you preached against. When we get all caught up in that, all we have is the negativity in our minds, the negativity in our thoughts, and the negativity in our being. But instead, if we get all caught up in you, then we will have nothing but love. We'll have nothing but your unconditional love that we can then share throughout this world and share unto this world and share of this world. And if more of us can do that, then Lord, this world would be a more beautiful place. This world would be a more Christ-filled place. And this world would be closer to seeing you in the second coming. So as we look to your cross this week and what it symbolizes and what it means, both in the time that you partook on that cross as well as today in our thinking, may we see ourselves in that cross. May we see ourselves in the sacrifice. May we see ourselves in the love that you had for each and every one of us. And may we share that love beyond just our little circle of friends, beyond our community, but into this entire world. For it doesn't say, God so loved this little bitty town. It says, God so loved the world that he gave his only son. So let us have that love each and every day. Peace be with you, and may you be in peace each and every day. But may you not go to pieces. And if you need to talk, please reach out anytime on either my cell at 336-382-5617 or my email at wnccumc never mind on the email. I'll attach it to the video. But reach out through email. I'll put it up on our website. Reach out to me through our email, my phone, text, whatever you need to do. I'm here to hear from you, friends. I'm here to walk with you through whatever you may be going through. So please, feel free to reach out, because the love of Christ doesn't stop at the property lines. The love of Christ goes out into the entire world. Amen.